for viewing the course called Photoshop for Instructional Designers. Our first lesson, we're going to see how to remove backgrounds from images that we want to use in our e-learnings or our handouts, job aids. Hopefully you had a chance to look at the Meet the Teacher document, and you'll know that I'm an instructional designer full-time for an insurance company, and what I want to teach you here are the more common things that I have to do as I'm working as an instructional designer. So one thing that's very common, not just for instructional designers, but for anyone that's working with graphics, is trying to remove backgrounds. So I'm going to show you the easy way to remove a background, and then I'm going to show you the more difficult way to remove a background. So first we need pictures. I'm assuming you have Photoshop turned on, and now what we want to do is click on File, then Open, and I already have pictures saved on my system. If you notice, it took me to the Pictures folder, and that's because that is the last folder that I had used, and I want to use this picture here, line picture no BG. So then I click on the picture one time and then click Open, and here is our picture. Now this picture is notable because the background is only one single color, and those are the best pictures to get when you're surfing the internet for something. If you choose an image that has just one color in the background, it doesn't have to be white, it could be all black or all red, then that's going to be really easy to remove the background on. To remove this background, we need the magic eraser. So we have our toolbox here. This is all our toolbox, and we want to look for the erasers. And if you notice, you can move your mouse over the different tools and it gives you the name. So right now I'm on the clone stamp tool, and if I go to the tool right over it, next to it, then you'll see it says history brush tool, and I'm actually looking for the eraser. Now you might not see magic eraser. I see this because it's the last time I used Photoshop I had used the magic eraser. But also notice there's these little triangles in the bottom corners. Whenever you see a triangle, that means you can right click, and then you see a bunch of different tools, and you can choose the tool you want. There's actually many different types of erasers. There's what I like to call the regular eraser tool, the background eraser tool, and the magic eraser tool. For my picture here, I want to use the magic eraser tool, so I'll click on it one time. So now what does this do? Whatever color you click on, it will delete that color. So I'm going to delete on the white, and it got rid of the white background. If I do Control-Alt-Z, see the color comes back. So I could go ahead and, it doesn't matter where you click, I could click right here, it still removes the white from the background. And now when you open up an image like I just did with Photoshop, and you make a change to it, what you want to do is you want to save the Photoshop file. So if I go to File and I go to Save As, now notice here it says Photoshop for Format, and you don't see the original picture. Remember when I went to File Open the first time, you saw my pictures that I had saved, because what happens is it's only showing you files that are PSD right now. So I don't have any PSD file saved, so it looks like there's nothing there, but there is. I want to save this as a PSD file because later on, if I want to make changes, it's easier for me to make changes to the PSD file than having to start all over with the JPEG or the PNG file I saved from the internet. So many formats. But if you click on Photoshop here, you see all the different formats you can save with using Photoshop. So a common format here is bitmap, GIF, JPEG is another common one too. Here's the PDF for Photoshop. I personally like to save images as PNG files. Okay. So right now I'm going to save this as a Photoshop file. I'm just going to leave the same name, or if you want you can go and edit. So I'll click Save. Now what I just did is I saved it as a PSD, so it's giving me this message if I want to maximize compatibility between the different versions of Photoshop. So I click Yes. Now, let's see what's in our files here. So what I did is I went and just opened up the picture folder where I save my files. And now you see, well, yes, here's my original lion picture. Here's my PSD file picture. And then you see I also have a second JPEG picture. Where am I getting the JPEG and PSD? Well, they're right there. This is called the extension of your file name. So this is JPEG file. This is a JPEG file. And then this is a PSD file, which lets you know it's in a different format. Okay. I'm going to click back on Photoshop. So now I saved it as a PSD file, but you can't use a PSD file in your software. So I can't open up Word and just put in a PSD file. And I can't go ahead and upload this to, let's say, Flickr and then have that viewable, because it's a file that's just for Photoshop. So what you have to do is once you create the picture you want to save it in a different format. So I'm going to save, like I said earlier, I like to save in PNG files. Why do I like to save in PNG files? Because most of my files do not have backgrounds attached. So this particular file here does not have a background, so I want to save it so that this background remains transparent. The little checkers you see here, that means that there's no background. So let's go ahead and go to File. Now I go to Save As. And for Format, where it says Photoshop, I want to click and then choose PNG. And click Save. It's going to ask me if I want it to interlace or not interlace. So we'll click OK. So I'm going to go back to my Windows file here. So now you see I have line picture, no BG as a JPEG, but then I have line picture, no BG as a PNG. So this was my original file. Now if I use this, let's say in PowerPoint, and I'll go ahead and start a PowerPoint so we can see here. And just so you see the different formats and how it is that they work. Okay, so I'm going to start a blank presentation here, and I'm going to add a design like so, and I'll just make this so it's a blank layout. Okay, so now here are my pictures, and this is my original picture. Okay, notice the white background. Now I want to go ahead and put in my PNG picture, and you notice there's no background here. If I were to take this picture with no background and save it as a JPEG, it would look like this. JPEGs do not preserve transparency. So if you absolutely need it to be transparent for use in other software, in this case I'm using PowerPoint, or if you upload to the internet and you need the background to be transparent, you should save it as a PNG file, like this guy. Okay. Oh, but what about the PSD file? Can I put that in there? Well, let's try. Something's happening. PowerPoint is upgrading to optimize compatibility and playback. So let's see what this means. It thought that my PSD file was a video. So it even put the little player in there. So it's clearly not a video, it's just a file, it's a picture. But because PowerPoint didn't know what to do with it, it's treating it like a video. So that's what happens with this. So let me close this out. And like I said, that's the easy way of removing a background. Let me close this picture. And I want to go to File, Open, and I want this picture here. Now this is the fun part, okay? Because clearly the background has many different colors. So we cannot just click with the magic eraser. Let's see what happens. Okay. So it's not going to do it. Okay, so then when we have a situation like this, we want to use what's called a layer mask. Usually they save layer masks for more advanced lessons, but it's something that is so common that I think you should learn it right away, because people will show up with pictures. Hey, can you remove this background? Or look, here's a picture of Charlie, but we want to remove the fish tank in the back so we can use it in our flyer or brochure. So it's a common thing. Now we have our picture, and if you go down here, this is what they call your palette. This is your layers palette. And this here, where it says layer 0, we call that a layer. Okay. If you notice there's a little eye, if you click it, the picture goes away. If you click the eye back on, the picture comes back. Okay. So right now it's not really helpful, but as we further along in the lessons, you'll see that having layers is a great feature to have. So now we want what's called the layer mask. See all these little buttons down at the bottom here? You can move over, and you want this one that looks like a rectangle with a square in it, and that's the add layer mask button. So I'm going to click that button one time, and you get this little white box. This is letting you know that there's a layer mask on this picture. And in order to take advantage of this layer mask feature, what we have to do is we have to use the brush. So here is our brush. It's right next to that band-aid looking thing. If you right click, you notice there's actually different tools there. The brush is the most commonly used one, so they keep that as a default. So I'll click on the brush tool, and then see this down here? These are our colors that we could use for our brushes or pencils or pens or different items. Right now it's white and black. If you press D on your keyboard, that will set your default color. So if you see any other color like green or red, just press D and it should look like this. Now, why do we need to do all of this? Now that I have my brush, okay, now that I have my color, if I go over this with white, nothing's happening. Okay, white is to reveal. Nothing is hidden right now. So when I brush with the white, nothing happens. But let's press X. What pressing X does is it changes these colors. It's the same thing as if you click on these little arrows. So now I want to use my brush with the black color. So now that I start using my brush, now you see I'm getting rid of the background. And right now my brush seems a little small. If you look at your options here, you see, or at least in my case, mine is a size 13. You can click on this little down arrow, and you see there's different sizes and there's different kinds. This is what we call a hard brush, and this one here is what we call a soft brush. For our particular case, we want to use a hard brush, and we'll go over what that means later. But here's a hard brush, and I click back on my picture. Okay, and if you're thinking, well, this brush is too small or too big, look on your keyboard. You have brackets right next to the letter P. So the bracket on the left makes your brush smaller, and the bracket on the right makes your brush bigger. So right now I'll use a big brush just to speed this along. Okay. Now when you're doing this, notice, it goes fast, and then you think, uh-oh, I cut off the lines top of his head. Well, when you use a regular eraser, which we haven't done, but maybe you've done it before, when you do something like this, it actually deleted the image. So you would have to sit there pressing like Control Z or something to bring it back, and it undoes all the work that you just went through. Let me bring this back here. But we're using a layer mask this time. We're not using an eraser. And using layer mask is what they call a non-destructive process. So remember how we were going over this with the black, and then we did the white, nothing happened? Well, we're going to switch our colors again. So we were using black. I'm going to press X. Now I'm using white, and the white will bring it back. You can't do this with the erasers. So even if you mess up, you have a way to bring back the part of the image that you messed up. So if you want to bring back those parts of the background, you use the white. The white is to reveal. And if you want to get rid of it, that is hiding. So we're not deleting, we're not erasing, we're just hiding the parts of the picture we don't like or we don't want. And it's a non-destructive process, so if we make a mistake, we're able to fix it. So now you're thinking, okay, this is getting pretty hard. Is there a way to make this bigger or smaller? If you press Ctrl+, that allows you to zoom into your picture. And then what I like to do is I like to press the space bar, and then you can drag with your mouse on the space bar. And when you get up nice and close, now your brush is going to be way too big, so we need to go back to our little brackets here. Make it smaller. And now we can start erasing more of the image. And sometimes we have this idea that we have to make sure we get every little hair there. And the truth is that if you delete some extra stuff, most time people don't notice unless it's something that's really, really crucial to the image. So if I have these little hairs here and I delete them, most people will not know that there were little hairs there and that maybe I should have worked a little bit harder to bring them back. So I'm just using my mouse. Now if you have a tablet, a pressure tablet with the pen, well this is even a lot nicer when you're doing it that way. But since all I have is a mouse right now, here's the way I'm doing it. And I can make this a little smaller, just so you don't have to use a lion picture, right? You can use something else, but you can go ahead and replicate this process using whatever image you have available to you. I recommend that you use Firefox to do your searching, and a lot of people get caught up in what's better, what's more secure, what's more this. Well, the only reason why I use Firefox over the other software is because there's a neat little plugin that I like to use. So if I'm just going over my picture here, and oh, this is just not nice here. Just play around with it to soften it up a little. So remember we said there was different kinds of brushes, and I'm using a hard brush right now. I'm going to switch and get this soft brush here. And the difference is that the soft brush will not leave those hard lines. So let me show you. So here I am getting closer and closer. Notice how it's covering, but it's not covering it all in one swoop. It's like a soft touch to the image. So like right here, it just seems like it was too hard. And it's kind of even like a gradient when it's moving that stuff. And apparently I went too far. See here, I cut part of the foot off. I didn't even realize it, but it's okay. I'm using a layer mask. I could switch my colors, so now I'm using white again, and I could bring it back. The magic of layer masks. Once you use layer masks, you probably won't want to use the magic eraser very much. So now I'm just using this to bring back some of the parts I erased too much out of. Let's do Control- here. And there you see. So let me just finish up with my reflection on what I use Firefox. I'm going to go to Firefox here. And if you want to grab some pictures, pics4learning.com is a great site. These are pictures for students or for teachers, and you can use them, play with them, and you don't have to worry about royalties or all that other good stuff when you have to pay for pictures. So I'm in the animal section here. Let me take a look at the bald eagle. And let's say I like this one. So here is the picture I found of the bald eagle. Okay. There we go. So why do I like to use Firefox? I like to use Firefox because there's this really neat little plugin that if I right click on the picture, it says open with Photoshop. And I have not found a plugin that does this with Internet Explorer yet or with Chrome. The only one that I saw available or that I've seen is open with Photoshop. So if I click on open with Photoshop, it's just going to go directly to Photoshop. Whereas if I don't use this, what I have to do is I have to save it on my system and then open up Photoshop, go to File, Open, find the picture, and then open it. So using this little neat plugin, I'm actually saving myself like 4 steps with every single picture I want to use from the internet. So here I have this picture of this eagle where it has a background with multiple colors, so I cannot use the magic eraser on this picture, so I want to use a layer mask. So I will go to my button down here for the layer mask, and it's blocked, nothing is happening. The reason why you might get this sometimes is because your picture has a little lock on it, like so. And all you have to do is double click on the picture, and then you can name this layer whatever you want. So I'll just put bald eagle and click OK. So now if you notice, the lock is gone, which means the layer is no longer locked. We can make changes to it. Now we can go down here and click on the layer mask button. There's my little white rectangle. And I'll press D just to get back to my original colors. And I want the brush up here. And I'm still using the soft brush. Okay. So my brush is way too small, so we use the brackets to make them bigger. And right now nothing is happening because I have white, so I press X. And now that I have black, now I can start removing the background. Now one thing I do often is I will go along the edges like this and actually delete the edges, because then I want to go inside of the picture I want to keep. I switch my color, so now I have white, and then this is how I get the edges in. So of course this all depends on what you're doing with the picture, if you need that little shadow around it or not. Of course we can go back, change our colors using X, and I'll click on the dark spots like so to get rid of them. Now I'm picking these difficult pictures because they have all these little hairs and feathers on the end. But you can try this with even cartoony pictures if you want, just to make it a little bit easier. And once you build up your confidence, you can try using something more like this. And again, if you have access to a Wacom tablet or something like that, you'll notice that when you're using the actual pen tool, this looks a lot nicer than the mouse. So just to review really quick, what did we see? We saw using an image of a lion with a solid color background, and then use the magic eraser. or we use the layer masks using the layer mask button. The white and the black act with each other in order to conceal or reveal parts of the image. We're using white right now. That brings the picture in. When we switch, that gets rid of the picture using the black. Well, I hope you enjoyed this first lesson of Photoshop for instructional designers.